this feeling of being overwhelmed and the weight of it is just crushing you to the point where all you want to do is lay in bed because you feel like there's no point in trying? I felt this way too when I started on my healing journey, but I learned really fast the real reason that I was actually overwhelmed, because laying in bed all day just wasn't an option for me. I had 2 little girls to take care of, 2 dogs and a cat, and a husband with a crazy ass work schedule. Well, in this video, I'm going to reveal the real reason that you're feeling overwhelmed, and it's not what you think. So the first reason that I thought I was overwhelmed is because I had way too much on my plate. I was the room mom for both of my daughter's classes and said yes to every single thing that I was asked to do. Plus, I was working part-time teaching graduate level college students, and I was also going to school to be a dog trainer. So I just had way too much on my plate, and I just felt like if I could just get rid of something, then this feeling of being overwhelmed will completely go away. But that didn't happen because I let go of the teaching job, still felt overwhelmed. Let go of the dog training job, still felt overwhelmed. And so it really wasn't about letting things go to minimize what was on my plate, even though that seemed like an easy fix. The second reason that I felt overwhelmed was because I was being thrown all of these labels by my therapist: codependent, enmeshed, childhood emotional neglect, anxiety, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, and then being gaslighted for not taking them. And I just felt like I needed to find the answer. I needed some tools, some strategy to help that feeling of being overwhelmed with all of those labels and not being able to manage them go away. So in addition to saying yes to everything and feeling like I had way too much on my plate, I also was in this stage of binging information and then having information overload, because I was so busy gathering all of this information, analyzing all of this information, and then being completely overwhelmed and not being able to take action to figure out what actually was going to work to help with managing and coping with the labels that I had been given. So, and then here's the third reason that I felt overwhelmed. I was so busy looking so far into the future, worrying about what life would be like 10 years down the road, and also being so far stuck in the past, like 10 to 20 years stuck in the past, and analyzing both things. Oh my God, what's gonna happen if I can't get my codependency and my enmeshment and my childhood emotional neglect under control? But oh my gosh, I didn't get to do A, B, and C because I was in that abusive relationship. And oh my gosh, I yelled at my kids last week because they didn't put their shoes on the first 20,000 times that I asked them. And oh my gosh, now what am I gonna do because I just realized that I found this new book on codependency, and when am I gonna have the time to read it and do the journaling exercises and all of these things? So I was looking too far forward and too far back to actually be present in the moment. And so it was like I was trying to buy a car before I had even gone to driver's ed and gotten my permit and gotten my license. It just was not working. But here's the real reason that I was overwhelmed. I felt like my life was completely out of control. My life felt out of control because I didn't know who I was, because I left my teaching career, but I also didn't know who I was because I had all of these labels thrown at me, and I was trying to come to terms with all of them and figure out how to manage them while healing on my own, because I really didn't feel like I was getting the tools from the therapist that I needed to cope and manage and be able to just get through life without completely losing my mind and feeling like I was going insane and being crushed by the weight of everything that I was having thrown at me. Plus, I wanted to be a good mom for my kids. I wanted to be a supportive wife for my husband. I wanted to be able to go to all the school functions, find a job where I felt like I was contributing, not just financially, but in a meaningful way too. And so in life, we need something called variety, or AKA uncertainty. But in this stage of my life, I had way too much uncertainty because I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know what next thing the therapist would throw at me at my upcoming appointment. I didn't know what my kids were gonna do to give me a hard time. I didn't know when my husband was gonna be working late. And so that was the other thing that added to life feeling out of control. There was just so much uncertainty, too much for me to feel like I could handle on top of everything else. And so that was really why I felt overwhelmed. It wasn't really about having too much on my plate, because I could take things off and lighten my load. It really wasn't about the information overload, because I could have paced myself and said one thing at a time. It really wasn't about thinking too far ahead or too far back. into the future and the past, because I could have, worked through those mindset things. But at the end of the day, the real reason that I felt overwhelmed because life just felt completely out of control. Have you ever felt this? So if you are feeling like you need to have some coping skills or something to lighten that load so you don't feel the weight of the world coming down on you and forcing you to just lay in bed because what's the point of even trying? Be sure to tune into this video for mindfulness practices that will help you ease the stress and overwhelm.